or 100,000 or less, or some appropriate amount if we can determine what that more appropriate amount would be.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Before we go start asking for an override, why don't we follow through with that program we went to a month ago to see how much tax money is out we're going to collect from this company? I think that'd be a better idea. You got 6 months ago, we're going to have a company come in and take my land and stuff. I think you ought to do that before you ask for an override.
Well, there's two things. One, the expenditures that Selectman Morrison is talking about are not the kinds of things that we would use the money from collecting those one-time taxes to pay for. If we're going to hire assistants, we're not going to use money from the tax titles because that money is a one-time money item. So we'd be using funds that we only get once and taking on someone permanently. So perhaps a capital expenditure would be appropriate. But the other kinds of expenditures we're talking to involving salaries and whatnot would not be an appropriate item, because what the override is obviously is a permanent increase in taxes, and that money would then be available permanently going forward. I don't know if Bob would like to address the...
Just on the question of the tax titles, the tax titles have been updated by the treasurer. The file has been given to Telaj, the company that has offered to buy some. They have it. They've had it for the past week, and we expect to hear from them soon as to how many of the tax titles they're willing to purchase. But as Ken said, that's one-time money. We won't get it next year. And so to avoid getting into trouble in the future, we should only pay for recurring expenses with recurring revenue.
Yes, John.
I am in basic agreement with Doug, but I think a priority I would have is to assure that we have 24-hour police coverage.
What John is referring to, for any of you who weren't here previously, we currently have 24-hour police coverage, but the only reason we have 24-hour police coverage is because the resource officer is now on patrol because the school is closed. So once the school reopens, and with the loss of that full-time person, I shouldn't say the loss, but that person not being available to be on patrol, we will go back to not having an overnight police coverage as well. That would be something, too, that if we were looking at just a $100,000 override, I believe a large chunk of that would be used for that purpose. So that would be something, which is obviously an important thing to have, but to consider as well. Yes?
Yeah, I agree with both Doug and John that if we do an override, it should go for salaries or assistance or 24-hour coverage. I don't believe we should go out for a huge override, but I believe this goes to Doug's plan of asking every year for small incremental overrides so that every year you're not asking for a big, huge chunk of money. This year, 2.5% raised, what, $280,000? And 145 of that was just taken off the top to the schools. So we were left with 140,000 to deal with increases in our general insurance, our retirement, our health benefits, and everything else. It's gone. We're automatically in the hole just by increasing our taxes 2.5%. So we have to, if we want to provide the services that I believe that people in town have come to expect, then we're going to have to ask for overrides. And if we're going to ever fix, the wage and compensation plan for this town is broken. It does not work. It's not equitable, and it's not fair to our employees who've worked here for a long time. So we do need, this is an opportunity to try to get the funding so that we can address those basic integral problems with our staffing and our budget. So that I would make a motion to support an override for 50 cents, because I think that would raise about $200,000,
Okay.
give or take, and that would cover, I believe, the expenses for 24-hour police and to deal with the compensation that we need to deal with in town.
So I have a motion for an override in the amount of $200,000. Do Do I have a second? Sorry.
Well, it's 50 cents, yeah.
50 cents of the tax rate. whatever that
Yeah.
comes out.
Whatever that ends
Yeah.
up being, okay.
Yeah.
And that would cover an assistant for the tax collector, the clerk, and 24-hour police coverage, and that would cover the health insurance that's required and other insurance? I'm asking, like, we're just, I mean, the 50 cents is, does that really gonna cover that? I mean, and that's a permanent?
Fully loaded police officer,
And we know that that amount would cover
you're in the
those
range of
things?
60,000. Because, it would be a first-year police officer, but fully loaded with health insurance and retirement.
Right, for each person who's, right, health insurance and retirement. I mean, those are forever bills. They're not, you know.
But don't they have money in the budget? I mean, I don't believe we
No.
cut the number of police
No,
officers.
No.
No, we didn't, but they don't, in order to be able to restore 24-hour coverage, one new police officer is required.
That's not
Because as
what-
Ken pointed out, in September, the SRO is not going to be on patrol anymore, he's going to be at the schools,
Right.
and so they will be shorthanded to provide a midnight shift.
So this is an unbudgeted person then.
It's an unbudgeted person, yes.
Yes.
So, what I'm hearing, you guys are making the decision between compensating the people that are already on the payroll and trying to repair that disparity between the ones that are already on the payroll that are grossly underpaid and the ones that are better compensated. You're choosing to, rather than fix that, hire new people.
I don't think we're
Is that what I'm
choosing.
hearing?
No, we have a motion that hasn't been seconded yet, I believe. Which, not because no one seconded it, because I haven't asked for it yet. For 50 cents on the 1,000, what's getting mixed in there is in our discussion of, there's two separate issues. How much is the override and what would we propose? Because obviously, if we're making changes to the town budget, that ultimately has to be approved in our fall town meeting. So we ultimately don't really get to pick. I mean, obviously, we're going to propose something and hope that the town goes with it. But that's part of what we're discussing now is kind of what would we like to get back, what are our priorities, and then, you know, if the amount is going to be 50 cents per thousand, approximately $200,000 total, would that cover what those expenses are? So and from what I've heard so far, it's been mentioned that we're getting back to 24-hour police is a priority, and then also compensation is a priority for existing employees, and then those departments which have had their assistants completely cut, and they are having difficulty functioning. I'm just going to use the assessor, and I know that she's hiding, so I don't have direct line of sight, but just using the assessors or the tax collector or other departments that only have one person, Carol, right, you know,
I
yeah.
totally agree that they need help,
Right.
but I don't think that 50 cents is going to be
Me
enough for
either.
everything you want to do.
Right, and I don't think that,
I think, once again, the same people that are paying the price are going to pay the price again.
and I don't think anyone's now, with that 200,000, we would be able to bring back some assistants that are desperately needed, and, or maybe just one, I mean, we'll have one or two, hire another police officer. In terms of restructuring the whole pay scale system, I don't think that we are in a position to fully remedy that with this particular override, with the theory being that, so if this override then pays for what we need to have full-time police, bring back an assistant for the assessor and for town clerk, and, you know, and then moving forward, the next small override then may be for the sole purpose to balance out the pay system and the pay scale, to try to, you know, create more steps and smaller gaps in between the steps, and increase pay for current employees. The problem is that we just asked for $500,000 3 months ago when the town said no, and that money was literally the whole town shut down, and people knew that was going to happen, and they still voted no. So my concern is if we start even asking for half of what we did last time, people are just going to vote no out of reflex again, and we'll get nothing as opposed to at least something, you know, moving forward.
And you told us, what, a month ago, that this fall, you were going to fix the wage and compensation. You were going to do what you had to do to fix this wage and compensation. Give us something.
Right, I mean, we can begin the process, but ultimately, we are bound by what the taxpayers will allow us to tax. I mean, as you obviously know, there's really no fat from the budget that we can trim to take from other places, so the only way that we really can remedy the problem, it's not gonna be, cutting this and then to fix, it's going to just have to be new revenue if that's something that, but I feel even a small override is going to be a tough sell for people.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
That you're picking different heads. You guys are talking with important heads.
Is there, so first of all, is there a second to Julie's motion before we continue discussion? For a 250 cent, why can't I get that? 50 cent per thousand override to raise approximately 200,000. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a first and we have a second, so now we'll continue discussion. Yes, Mr. Green?
I just want to say, I really can't believe we're back here again asking for money again. I think when we presented the budget this last year, I realized that it was, a devastating budget, and I know that. But we did it with the thought of consolidation and bringing more offices together. And we've just started that process. We have just started that process. We have another building we're in now, and as we move along, we need to see what we're going to need in that building. Right now, putting money towards hiring assistants that I'm not saying we don't need may not turn out to be the best way to do things. I can't see people supporting it. I can't see people supporting it at all. I think we've got a good opportunity to do more consolidation. And, I think if we put a good plan in place to bring departments into the building, we can figure out what we need. I just don't think the time is right now.
Well, consolidation isn't going to give us 24-hour police, regardless. And also, that's not going to bring us 60,000, particularly because we have so few assistants. If we keep the number of assistants that we have, even if we have one assistant for every 2 departments, we still don't have full coverage. And then in essence, what we're doing is we're taking we eliminated 2 part-time positions and then are creating a position that's going to require benefits and retirement payments to the county retirement system so that they can handle the job of covering both. I think to say that we're going to have one assistant that's going to be the assistant for the town clerk and for the deputy assessor, and we're going to have them work less than, is it 30 or 25, 30 hours a week?
That's 20.
Oh, less than 20, that they're going to, apparently, they're going to devote 9.5 hours to the town clerk for a whole week and 9.5 hours to the deputy assessor for a whole week, and that's going to be sufficient. That's, the department heads, if I'm wrong, can tell me I'm wrong, but I think it's impossible to, it would take a year, 9 hours a week, it would take a year just to train someone to be the deputy assessor's assistant, or to be, the town clerk's assistant. I think that, again, that's fine, and I've said this before, if townspeople don't want their taxes to go up, that's fine. They saw what the result of that is, and with no overnight police, people couldn't get building inspections done, they couldn't get, the Board of Health couldn't conduct inspections, and if that's what people want, that's democracy, that's fine, but let's be honest about what they're getting. Without an override, there isn't going to be a 3rd police shift, which is fine. If that's what people want, that's what people want, but there isn't going to be one, and no amount of consolidation or central ordering of paper clips is going to give us 60 grand out of that very tight budget. As you know, it's tight because of, helped put it together, it was, yeah, right, so.
But I think there was a mandate of what the people wanted the town to do. And basically, they wanted the town to be a part-time government town. And that's what it is. This is a part-time town.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to do too much.
Sorry, I'll let the, yes, town administrator.
Just to review what has happened in the new fiscal year, and in some instances it goes back to the prior year. As was pointed out, the assessors and the town clerk have not replaced their assistants. Cemetery department has lost an assistant. An assistant in the selectman's office has not been replaced. And lastly, the highway assistant is down to 2 days a week. And there's one.
Building.
And the building department has lost an assistant. So there has been considerable downsizing in the new year, even though we're talking about going in the other direction. I mean, it's already, the impact of of the new fiscal year has already been substantial in terms of the reduction in staffing.
All I hear about is us kind of heading the other way again, right? I think we gotta be careful.
Right.
And
Well,
we can end up in the same boat again.
Right, yeah.
I just know that last week, when the town clerk was on vacation, deserved vacation, okay? People could not get what they needed, all right? Whether it be birth certificates to play football, or they just weren't planning ahead.
That's what happens when you have a part-time
There was,
job, right?
somebody
I mean,
needed a
basically.
wedding license,
Understand
and
that.
more and more people have so many weeks of vacation that they've earned. And we can't keep, carrying it over from one year to another, okay?
We have to
So
learn to do
offices,
business a different way.
offices
That's
will
what it
be
is.
closed, okay? The assessor's office will be closed next week. I don't know when the town clerk is going on vacation again. And if there isn't someone to help, then those offices will be closed for about, 12 weeks, I think, between them. Okay?
And Doug, I'm sorry, did you had your hand up earlier? I don't know if what you wanted to say was already addressed.
Yeah.
Oh, just a second, please.
I was just going to say that, it's not important.
Okay. Well, and something too that I just want to point out as well, that, because you hear this a lot, I know Diane does as well, but I won't put words in her mouth, that, oh, you're asking for another override. Something is, and I'm just using this as an example, not to get into the whole debate, because we have that coming up later on the agenda, but Julie had alluded to the school. And what is true is, as the town is under its target share, every year the state will continue to increase. When Julie said that 100 and whatnot came off the top, that's going to happen. That's going to keep happening. Our assessment is going to keep going up because of state law, and Phillipston's is going to keep going down because of how close we are to our target share. So if 2.5% is only going to bring in $250,000 a year, and we're going to be having 150, 175 of that go to the school, whether you agree with it or not, it's state law, it comes right off the top. So then, after you take out inflation, you probably have about another $40,000 to cover all the increases in retirement contributions, all the increases in health insurance as well. So it's not that, even by using this, we may be bringing back 1, 2, maybe 3 positions, possibly 2 under an override of this amount. We're not growing town business. We're not offering new services. We're just trying to be able to offer the services that that people need, kind of in the modern age, to be able to conduct business and to do to move forward. Yes.
Thank you.
And then I'll get to you, Mr. Casper. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's about business, I suppose, but going to the townspeople over and over again for money and increases in more job positions is not what we wanted, and he's right. We want a small town, we want small services, and that's what we want. And as far as I'm concerned, you spoke in terms of the police leaving and going back to the school, which is probably the DARE officer of some sort. And I did quite a study about that a while back, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. And that particular program was a complete failure.
Right, well, not to cut you off, it's not a DARE officer, it's the resource officer that's there.
Yeah, that's sort of like recalling, what post-traumatic stress is to shock situations in World War II, of shell shock. Now, you can call it whatever the hell you want. The bottom line is that, the evidence, the officers, do we need an officer at night? And maybe we only need one,
We have to have 2 under our insurance.
Maybe we have, if I may continue without an interruption.
I'll interrupt when I see fit, as I'm the chairman.
Well, if you're going to interrupt me, please do it after I'm done with the sentence and announce it, so that
Okay.
I can continue.
Well, I think that
my
the
thought.
board has gotten all the knowledge it's going to from this conversation. So, Mr. Casper, did you have something you
Excuse me?
wanted to say?
I got a question.
Yes.
When's that building gonna be complete that we're in up here now? How come the building inspector ain't up there by now? The Board of Health isn't up there by now? Why aren't they in that building, especially the building inspector? We pay him a pretty good salary for this town. How many hours a week is he in this town? Who signs the paper? Who signs the paper?
This,
How many hours a week?
Yeah.
Go see.
sure.
Go see.
I can answer for the Board of Health and the Building Department. They're moving next. We are hoping to relocate into the Selectmen and Town Administrator's offices this week. That's what we talked about today. And as soon as we vacate that room where we currently are, Building and Health can move in. And the next pair would be the Town Clerk and the Assessors. All that holds up the Town Clerk is the issue of a vault. We had hoped to put a vault on the main floor, but have been told that that does not make sense, because if there is a fire, the vault will no doubt drop down to the basement, and it might break open if it's made of masonry. And so, not thinking that the town wants to pay for a metal vault, we're trying to resolve that problem. And chances are it is going to go down on the bottom floor, and then the clerk, and I think in short order, the clerk and the assessors are going to move into the new building. We're acutely aware that this has to happen quickly, because we've been informed by the highway superintendent that he doesn't think we have enough fuel to get through the winter and heat the existing outlying buildings that we have. So we need to make sure that those consolidations at the new town hall occur quickly, so that we can close these other buildings, including the closing of the Scout Hall up here as well, as soon as the COA is able to relocate.
Mr. Smart?
Yeah, on the topic of your override issue, I think personally, the targeted override, specifically going for something, instead of putting 3 things on one override, have 3 overrides. Let the people know what you're going to do exactly with that money. Have one for wage fixing and compensation, one for a police officer, and one for an assistant for Luann, or whatever. If you target them individually, instead of throwing them all in there, you may get one of them, or 2 of them, or all of them. The people at least get the choice to choose.
Thank you. Was there another hand I saw? Yes.
Well, that would be, his consideration would be an up and down vote. And if you consolidate them all, you know, I mean, you might want one and not the other and get it, you know. But the fact of the matter is as I said, you know, we're stressed out and there is no revenue. The town has no, you know, revenue coming from new projects or new sources. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I can't do it, you know. And I just in there, and the fact that it can't be done, you know, and you need to cut and you need to consolidate more.
Yes.
Just to speak to that point, and mostly to Bob's point, the consolidation that has gone on already, and it speaks to Mr. Columbus's point as well, the consolidation that has gone on has been dramatic, very dramatic. I know that I'm down on my budget over 30% since 2012, and my mandate is purely public safety. So, although I agree with the need for full-time police, and I think it's a priority, to be thinking public safety is a good thing, I think that the people have spoken with the vote, and the advisory board so eloquently spoke to the fact that this is what the mandate is. We have already shrunk by 1/3, and to say that that doesn't count, we got to find more consolidation, I don't think is reasonable. I've got my oil shut off in the building. I can't afford to buy oil. So at what point do we say this is reasonable, this is excessive? I think that's a question we'll be grappling with the Templeton for quite some time.
Can I speak?
Yes, sure.
I think I agree with what everyone said, and the things that I hear are no different than what Mr. Green says. I think that Mr. Smart definitely is what I was thinking, is really asking, you know, we know that there are definite departments that are lacking. Everyone has taken a cut, but to have, there's no one there when the town clerk is gone, there's no one there. Luanna's and Carol have had to keep, postponing their vacations, and that's really unfair. So now they're closed, and it's unfortunate, but the people spoke and said they wanted smaller government. And until, really, if it doesn't affect you that way, you're not going to notice if you don't have to go to speak to the assessor. They're overworked and underpaid, and there's absolutely, a lot of people in the town are. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But to go before and just say, okay, so 50 cents on a dollar, although I agree with that amount, we should have small overrides, everyone spoke about that. But to target that and say we're going to do this, and that, that's what, it was more like, is there enough money, speaking to Diana, we did say that we were going to try to fix that, but ultimately, we can speak, but it's the town. It's about the town, and wholeheartedly, they said, no, you can't have that. And the school's budget will go up, and the school, so we're just going to continue, to be in that. I think if we put forth an override, then you have to be very clear. Same thing that we ask for other things on the warrant to be separated out so that you can say yes or no. I don't know if that's a good idea or bad, or even if that's allowed. If we say we want, like, what is the true cost of that? To have an assistant for Luann, to have an assistant to give pay raises. I don't know if we've done that work yet to be able to say, is 200,000 enough? And we're going back to the town to say, only again, next year or 6 months from now, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't ask for enough money to get what we want. It's not about what we want, it's about what the town wants. So we might want more people, more pay, more, I don't know if that, I don't know. I grapple with a yay or a nay, and at this point, I don't support an override. Because I think that everyone that I've heard from, oh my gosh, they're like, we just told you no. Okay. But I believe that Luann can't continue to work that way, and Carol can't continue to work that way. It's not right.
Yes.
It's not a question of what we want. It's a question of what we need to fulfill our legal obligations. Is the town clerk not being in her office? How long is that going to go on before it comes back to bite us as a town? How long before something doesn't get done in the assessor's office and we get DOR breathing down our neck again? It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. If we don't do what we need to do.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, Diane, that people have had enough, they can't afford.
Yeah.
But I think it's our responsibility as a board to bring it forth, to
Yeah.
make the ask, okay? Because, they said no 4 times and it turned into a yes. I'm not suggesting doing that. We don't have the legal mechanism to do that. But I feel we have a responsibility to our town employees, to the citizens in town, to provide the services that they're going to need. Whether they agree with it or not, I think we have to make that effort. We have to bring it forth, and if it gets shot down, it gets shot down. We are where we are now.
Yes.
Just offer a perspective from someone who is at the town hall every day. I'm not hearing any agenda from any members of the Board of Selectmen to build up the town workforce. That's not my agenda either. But there is a difference between a minimal government, a small government, and a part-time government, which is what I'm hearing everyone wants, and the discontinuation of service. And that is what we had last week in the clerk's office. The clerk went on vacation, which is deserved and warranted, and we got the calls. And the people who call are furious. A couple came in and said, we're getting married on Saturday. This was Monday. We need a marriage license. We had also contacts from parents who said, my child is going to play Little League baseball or on one of the baseball teams for children where you have to certify your age. We need birth certificates, and your office is closed. And so they become very angry. So in the abstract, we favor very minimal government. But I think in one case at least, with no coverage at all in the assessor's office and no coverage at all in the clerk's office, when the two principals are gone for any reason, either for a visit to town hall or for a vacation day or a sick day, then the office is closed. And so we're not just providing minimal government, we're discontinuing service. And that's going too far in some cases. But in general, we're not talking about rebuilding the workforce and growing government. I don't think anybody wants to do that. But we have to have some balance, and we have to be able to provide some very basic, very minimal level of part-time service.
I'd like to,
Oh, just, yes.
Wait.
And unfortunately, at times, the part-time service isn't enough. We all have reports that we have to submit to another government agency that if we don't submit is going to affect funding, either on the federal level, which is going to trickle down to the state, which eventually is going to trickle down to the municipal. I have reports that I have to submit, census reports at the building department. Not only do I have to figure out how to do them, I have 3 months worth to do. I have reports that I need to do at the Board of Health. And I have very limited time to take care of the citizens that come in the door, take care of the day-to-day business, and submit these reports.
you spoke in terms of not increasing the town employment, but you add a police officer, and I believe an override, I'm pretty sure an override is for, owed money. And really what you're doing is re-taxing, increasing the tax for another officer position, because you haven't really stated, again, no evidence that we need it, because we do have a state police department right down the street. And we don't even need a whole police department, as far as I'm concerned, because we have that. But you might think so, but I've never seen any evidence to that effect, okay? And so until you possess some sort of evidence, why should they go off and spend $100,000? And that's what you all talked about a few seconds ago, was $100,000, and it went up to $200,000. And I've also heard some rumors about that, 200,000, but they're rumors and I can't speak to them now, of people who didn't file different bills in this town, and they have to be paid back through town expenses through employees who didn't get paid, and so forth in the last fiscal year and so forth. So I don't know what you're presenting.
Right.
All right, but we've got some problems here, and I'm definitely not for an override.
Right. Okay, thank you. One thing that I will address, just to, in case there's any, if you call 911 when there are no police here, and hopefully this won't be a headline story, when you call the police in Templeton during the hours when there is no police coverage, no one comes from Gardner or Phillipston or anyone else. The State Police Barracks covers it, which is in Athol. The State Police Barracks in Athol has 2 officers on that cover 22 towns that extend all the way up to, I believe, Turner's Falls. So if someone is breaking into your house to rape, rob, or kill you at 3 in the morning, the state police directly told us it could be 20 minutes or 2 hours. Because if they are out in Shelburne Falls when someone is breaking into your house or trying to kill you, it will take them 2 hours to drive at full speed to get in here to treat the call. So that is why when we say that overnight full-time police coverage is important, that is the reason. Because again, you're not just waiting for someone to come from Gardner. But I understand the issue about having to provide services. For me personally, I'm kind of at a point now where I feel that the townspeople have kind of been through the consequences of not having the override. And you still, as Diane said, I still hear from people continually, you're just going to keep coming back asking for money every year. And the answer is, yes, we are. And until people understand the reasoning for that because of the limits of 2.5, combined with the state's increase in the school's budget, combined with inflation and the increase in retirement and health insurance, which we have no control over, those more than suck up every penny of your tax increase that happens. So to do anything, to give any kind of raises, to even provide minimal services at this point, it's going to require continual overrides. That wasn't done in the past. which is the reason why we're coming, asking for $1 million, asking for $800,000, asking for $700,000. And as Doug has said, and I think most people believe, you know, smaller overrides every year are a better way to accomplish that, to allow people to kind of digest it in their budgets. I'm kind of at the same place where Diane is. While I personally would vote for an override based on what I hear from people, it's no, we don't want the override, we're not increasing our taxes. And it's not, for me, it's almost a matter of, if that's what you want, we'll do it, and if everything works fine, then I guess we didn't need the money in the first place. But when those 10 calls we get start turning into 100 calls, then maybe people will keep that in mind the next year when we ask for an override to accomplish certain goals. So that's kind of where I personally am. So I think we've had enough discussion from the same people.
Oh, actually, I have a
Oh, sorry, from the floor. Do any of the selectmen have any other comments?
I would like to make just one more comment.
Sure.
It's, you know, I do think we need to ask. You know, the people have experienced, you know, some time now when we've had reduced government and had no government. So I do think it's our responsibility to try and provide better government, and we need more funds to do that. So I do think we should ask. I would have liked to see less than the 50 cents, but certainly no more than the 50 cents. But I do think Dave made an excellent point that if we do this, then we need to say, you know, this amount of money is for this amount of money is for, you know, salary stabilization. And I would even go as far as saying that we list the positions and what we're moving them to stabilizing them from. So that it's very detailed, people can actually see, oh yeah, these are the 6 people who are going to get an increase because we're trying to stabilize salaries. If we do one that says we're going to hire assistants, we should list, these are the 2 or 3 assistants, the number of hours they're going to work and their rate, so that people can actually see hard black and white, this is what a yes gives you or a no gives you. So that's what
Right.
my feelings are.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
It's not a no to an override, it's just, that's what I hear, so it's hard to support that, but it's also hard to watch, you know, specific departments struggle or be closed and then have all those phone calls too, but not to just ask for a dollar amount without a game plan, and a specific game plan, and that includes same things that we've asked for before, what's been happening. You know, you're closed, Luann, and you have a right to go on vacation, and all business stops. You know, same thing for the town clerk at the moment. And again, when people don't come in, it almost just seems like, well, town government's still working, but you're not here having to go. It affects me every day in my personal life and my business. So, you know, we have no building department. When we have no Board of Health, no real estate was being sold under my watch in this town. I don't know about other people, but, you know, it's just tough when you hear the people say, no override, you asked us for enough and our taxes just went up over $2. So with a specific game plan, absolutely.
Yes, Mr. Casper.
There are 21 houses in process of foreclosure in this town. It takes almost 2 years to go through that. You've got 7 houses that are abandoned in the town altogether, other than a Worcester paper last week. And a list of all, you've got that many much property in town. And you're going to force more people out. It takes over 2 years to kick somebody out of the house. You can't just have them get out of the house.
More.
There are 22 of them.
There's 7.
Come on. You listed all the papers the last time.
Mr. Spring.
What I'm hearing so far is that a plan needs to be put in place. My recommendation to this board is that you end up going back as a group and develop a plan before you come and ask for the community for that large amount of money. A plan would say individual items and what the override is. Going for a large sum is going to be very, very difficult, as you heard. I've sat here and listened to all of this, and the conclusion really is that it really falls on the select board to develop that plan before you end up in putting it to a vote to the community. And it has to be slice and dice and say this much for this particular thing, and let the folks vote on it, if that's what your wishes are.
Right. But I believe now the motion before the board is not necessarily for what we'll be using the funds for, but
No.
just for the amount to form a baseline of discussion, excuse me, a baseline of,
The problem is that we have the August 6th deadline.
right, which is our last meeting unless we call a special one before then
Right.
to do that.
Chairman, I'd like to be
Sorry.
recognized.
Sorry, we've heard, yes.
Just one question regarding the August 6th. If we make a decision that we're going to do this, and we're going to do these three things, and we want it to be very specific, do we have to have all of those details by August 6th?
No,
Or do we just have to
I'm
have the
just going to
amount?
point out that you've asked me to do a compensation review, which I'm going to provide to you, so that if you're going to go to the voters and say, we need an amount of money to adjust compensation for these department heads or these employees, you will have data behind that to show what Town of Templeton does for compensation and what's surrounding and peer communities that are like this community in terms of size, per capita income, and so forth. So that would be the data that could be used, or would be used, to present to the public. Same way with, if you want to fund another police officer, I can give you the exact, I said 60, but I can give you the exact amount that a fully loaded police officer would require. That would be initial training, compensation, and benefit package.
But do we have to have all of those details lined out by August 6th?
No, I think what you would want to do would say that if you're going to go forward with this, select 3 areas. Is that what, I think we're talking about 3 areas, and say we will put 3 separate questions
Right.
on the ballot. And then the data to support, or actually to inform the public, can be developed during the month of August, and then it can be presented around Labor Day, and the public can have some time to review the information and make their decision.
Could that please include an assistant to the deputy assessor and the clerk?
We would certainly, but we would have to agree, if the board can agree on the number of hours for a deputy. I assume we're going to do 1. We had talked about 1 for 2 offices. Particularly that works when you're down in town hall, as opposed to 2 more. I know that's not particularly popular with the offices, but that's what we had talked about. And, or if you want to ask for 2, I just need to know the number of assistants and the number of hours that would be funded. And then we can come up with an exact figure of what that will cost.
Yes.
Keep in mind, too, is we're voting in November.
Yes.
You're aware, 5 months into the fiscal year, so you're not actually, you wouldn't be asking for the whole annualized salary.
Right.
You'd be asking for a little more than half of the year salary.
But then we
Right.
need the money
Well,
to fund it for
there's
next
You need
year.
it for next year.
Following
You
year.
have to put the
Think
total
short-term
amount.
like that. That's what
If
got
you
us
short
into
it,
trouble.
yeah,
Right,
if you
we
short it
can't.
by 5 months, you're going to be in
You
5
have to
months
do for the
short
whole
next
year.
year, if it passes.
So,
When here's 2, sorry, just to interrupt, just because I want to get one thing straight
Yep.
amongst us, because there's 2 state ballots in the fall. There's one in September for the
Yes.
primary, and then one in November for the general election. So the one that's in September, that is the deadline.
No, August 6th
Oh, I
is the
thought-
deadline for the November ballot.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, so I just wanted to gotcha.
so I still haven't heard the real answer is, what do we have to do by August 6th? Do we just simply need to say we're going to have 3 questions? Do we
An
have to
amount?
have a dollar amount?
An amount,
Have an amount?
and the number of questions,
So a total amount, or do we have to have an amount for each question?
an amount for each question.
So that only gives us then until August 6th to figure
Which is
this
next
whole
week.
thing out.
Right, which is Wednesday.
So we'll probably should meet
I just
every
feel
night.
like we don't have enough information to make, I mean, to throw out, 100,000, 200,000, 400,000, I mean, To say, what if it comes at more than that, and then we go, oh, I'm sorry, we were gonna compensate you, but now we're not because we're gonna hire an assistant, and a police officer. So we're still not doing our employees any favors. And so it would be nice to have a hard number, that.
This is, I don't think this is going to require a great deal of work. If the board wanted to ponder this and maybe reconvene on maybe next Monday. Next Monday, the 4th of August, I have an indication which questions, which offices, we can put together the information you require. Here's why that's not so difficult. The Mass Municipal Personnel Association publishes a very highly secret book every year with the salaries, with a salary survey of every community in the Commonwealth that will cooperate with them, so that while I think some phone calls and checking would be necessary in some of the communities here, we already have a base of salary information to work from.
I think that what may be important as well is, just so Bob knows what he's working with, is if we could at least agree on whether or not we would like to, at least at this point, move forward with an override rather than just shoot it down completely in theory now, and then also what the general cap is, so that we can obviously revisit that on Monday. So if it turns out that to do what we need to do is going to take 198,000 or 202,000, we can obviously adjust it next week, but at least to know, to give Bob kind of a ceiling that we're looking at may be helpful as well. So I would propose, I did have a first and a second, just on the issue of an override and the cap of 50 cents per thousand, which would be about $200,000. So I think that I would like to, if the motions are still on the floor, move forward with that vote. Again, just so we can give Bob direction in what he is putting together for next week. And possibly, I know that we've discussed the adding a police officer. We've discussed an assistant in the deputy assessor's office, an assistant in the town clerk's office, and then also, as you said, some salary stabilization perhaps, if there's anything left. Or we can even find out what the cost of those 4 items would be, and then if that ends up costing $400,000, pick which ones we want to put forward this time to keep it under $200,000, I think. So, so I will move forward with a vote just for the general amount of the override, and that we should put one on the ballot for the November state election. I have a first and I have a second. So if there's, is there any other discussion from the board?
Well, do we want to wait and vote next week
Or in the whole?
on the whole shebang?
Sure, we can do that as
But we
well.
need to give Bob some general guidelines. of
I
what
thought today we had to make the vote to move
No, it
forward.
just has to be
Well,
by
we
the 6th.
recommended the
By
August
the
6th
6th.
deadline.
Yeah.
So if you tell me what costs you'd like to know, I can give you the costs of an assistant in the clerk's office, or assessor's office, or a police officer, or salary adjustments.
Well,
I think those are
we
the
could
4
do,
areas.
if we could have those compiled,
Yeah.
so that we could have the information,
Right.
it'd be much easier for us to make a decision.
Okay, so we're talking about those 3 areas.
Yeah.
An assistant, I'll work it up for clerk and assessors, a police officer, and then salary adjustments for non-bargaining people.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll table it?
Yep, so we'll table it until. So the next item we have on the agenda is to discuss Mass General Law 64L, which was at the request of Doug, which has to do with local sales tax.
Yeah. So, the reason I brought this up last week, and just want to have the discussion, I'm not necessarily looking for a vote or anything, but the reasoning behind this is because we have this compensation problem, and because we're not providing adequate services, we have to have sustainable income. So what are our sources of sustainable income? It's tax revenue and it's overrides. So So when I came across this, or had a citizen point this out to me, this is a form of getting some sustainable revenue. I'm not gonna, I put a 4-page paper in everybody's packet, and if anybody else would like a copy, I'm sure we can make it. The first 2 pages are basically Chapter 64L in detail. Then the 3rd page is other MGLs that are referenced in the Chapter 64L. A couple of them are pretty extensive, so I just put the link in here instead of all of the verbiage. The bottom line of it is that it takes a town meeting vote if we want to do it. The last page is where I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking. This law was enacted in 2009, so it's existed since 2009. 52% of the cities and towns of Massachusetts have adopted the law. Only 28% of the towns in Worcester County have adopted the law. The law provides for a 0.75% on meal taxes. Like if you go out to eat and you spend, say, $30 on a meal, that's 23 cents worth of additional tax. So you're paying $1.88 in normal state taxes, and you pay an additional 23 cents, which would then come to Templeton. Then down in the bottom, this is information that I got from the DOR website, which actually lists by fiscal year what their anticipated amount of revenue a town would generate from this tax. Templeton, I did the line in red. So if you look back in FY11, they projected that we would have made $27,000, $35,000, $36,000, $34,000. So in average, over those last 4 years, we would have, our average is $33,448. That's not a lot of money, granted. However, that is enough money that we could probably hire a few assistants with that, or we could stabilize
It's a
some
police
salaries.
cruiser.
Okay? But again, it's a sustainable revenue. I put all of our surrounding towns, or the lines that are in blue. None of our surrounding towns have adopted the law either. So, that's certainly something to consider. So, I mean, if it's something that anybody is interested in moving forward, I would recommend that we have public hearings and get input from the people, because it is an additional tax. We need to certainly hear from the business owners and get their feelings about, would it help or hurt their business, considering that none of the neighboring towns have implemented it. There are a number of towns that we probably all eat out regularly, though, that do have it. Lunenburg, Worcester, Sturbridge, Shrewsbury, all have this tax. So that's basically it in a nutshell. So I'm just putting that out there for consideration, and that's that. You have questions in the back?
Yes, sir.
I've listened to what he had to say. Speaking on my behalf, that's great for a single individual who's going out to eat. Now, in my situation, I have people and I'm serving 150 people. Well, 150 people, if I send a bride and a groom out and they're budget oriented and they're looking at a menu, and I say, oh, now we have a town tax that you also have to pay. Now, it doesn't matter if I serve you in Gardner, it doesn't matter if I serve you in Phillipston, it doesn't matter if I serve you in Athol, it doesn't matter if I serve you in Florida. I still have to pay that town tax. I send this out to them. Now, they're looking at it and they're budget oriented and they're saying, sorry, we're going with the next guy, because all they're seeing at the bottom is an additional tax. It doesn't matter the amount. All they're seeing is additional. Number two, we're also looking at bringing business into the town of Templeton. How are we going to bring business? We're looking to draw business. You're going to draw a restaurant in the town of Templeton when they're going to say, okay, I can open and operate in Gardner, and I'm not going to have to pay a locally municipal tax. If I open in Templeton, I'm going to pay this what you want, you can look at it. For us, it's something that they look at, and the mentality of it all, it's not the money at the bottom, and it's not even including the footwork that's included, but it's the fact that they look at the bottom line and they say, all right, here we are, we're looking at this. The bottom line is, we've got to pay this additional toll. It happens to us all the time. We look at it all the time. There are different things that we can't control that we're out there doing. This will be something we can't control, and it's something that would have a very big impact on my business alone. You know, Doug's talking about, you go out to eat, it's 50 cents for 2 people. I'm talking about serving 150 people.
Right, and I tend to agree that while I'm not always a hardcore subscriber to capitalist economic theory, I feel that in this particular case, given how desperate Templeton is for business, anything that even creates a headline that Templeton is, even if it's just pennies, Templeton's adding a 2-cent tax, and that's it, a flat tax to every bill in a restaurant. I think that is what comes across in the headlines of the paper, and that's what people read. When it comes to, as you said, bringing businesses of any kind in, even if it's not a restaurant, people see that, Templeton, in looking to fill its budget gap, is starting to look to revenue sources from businesses. I mean, right now, we have, as I said, a hard enough time attracting businesses, and we even have a single rate. There are many other communities, tax businesses have a commercial tax rate that's higher than the local. We have trouble getting business in town, and we don't even tax businesses anymore, for their property than we do individuals. So, while I definitely, obviously, personally appreciate the effort in looking at, and as Doug said, he wasn't looking for a vote or anything, but just something that we all consider along with other options. But I just personally get nervous when mixing business and taxes when we're trying to bring business into town. I don't know if anyone else has any.
I have the same thoughts. I mean, it's good to look at all revenue sources. I can appreciate that Doug did that, but I feel like it's not, welcome to Templeton, period. And again, it doesn't have to be like a big amount, it's a small amount, and we're looking to try to figure out how to bring people here. I just don't think that that's gonna do it. And the paperwork that must go with it. Is there a lot of paperwork that must go with that? So it's not just the tax piece of it, where does it go? Do we have to process that? Who's gonna do that? We already don't have enough staff. It's pushing it, on the backs of a lot of different people, to do that. So that's just my opinion.
Is there anything else from the board? And since we're not looking for a vote on this at this moment, I'm just going to move on to discuss it. Well, I'm sorry, we're moving on.
Are you ignoring me?
Well, this is not a town meeting, just as a...
I understand, but
Well,
I'm
can I
here as a
finish,
town
please?
resident.
This is a Board of Selectmen meeting. It's a meeting for the Board of Selectmen to speak. The open meeting law gives you the right to be here. It does not give you the right to speak at this meeting. So the chairman has the obligation to keep the meeting moving so that we can handle the business of the town. And at this point, I have made the decision that we're going to move on because we're not voting on it, so it's not really of particular significance right now to take public input. So we're going to move on to the gas pipeline statement
Just wanna
request,
make an
which was,
There's no sense in
I believe
me
that
being
this
here.
was requested by Selectwoman Farrell, I think?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been going to some meetings and doing some research on the expansion of the Tennessee gas pipeline, which at this point is not planned to go through Templeton, but it is planned to go through Winchendon. And right now, it's in the pre-planning, it's the pre-filing phase with Kinder Morgan, and they are looking for a way to go from Richmond, Massachusetts to Dracut along the northern tier of Massachusetts. Anything that can happen can push it into Templeton. This statement, it's a resolution opposing the northeast expansion of the Tennessee gas pipeline in Massachusetts. Along the border of Winchendon and Templeton, which is where it's proposed to go, there is the Birch Hill Dam area, Lake Denison, large amounts of conservation area as well. And I think that it is a sensitive area and it needs to be protected. A resolution isn't much, but it is a statement. I don't know if anyone had a chance to read it beforehand. It's almost exactly like the city of Northampton's resolution. If you want, I can read it. I don't know.
Sure.
If we have time, okay. Town of Templeton, Massachusetts, resolution opposing the northeast expansion of the Tennessee Gas Pipeline in Massachusetts. Whereas the so-called northeast expansion of the Tennessee Gas Pipeline is a high-pressure gas pipeline, hereafter the pipeline, proposed by the Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company, a subsidiary of Kinder Morgan Incorporated, that will run through many communities in western and central Massachusetts. And whereas the town of Templeton has a regional interest in protecting the environment in the North Quabbin and in the United States and public health generally, and whereas the pipeline would transport natural gas obtained through hydraulic fracturing, a drilling method well known for its potential groundwater contamination, impact on air quality, and the harmful health effects of its chemical byproducts, among others, and whereas pipelines of this kind carry inherent risks, such as leaks and ruptures, and as conveyors of flammable gas can cause accidents, such as the 2010 explosion in a residential neighborhood in San Bruno, California, that resulted in the death of 8 people and the destruction of 38 homes. And whereas the pipeline may pass through environmentally sensitive areas in our region, such as forests, wetlands, and others, as well as through the Birch Hill Dam area. And whereas taxpayer money would pay for the evacuation's emergency response in the event of explosions, fires, or other accidents. And whereas an energy tariff will be placed on all homeowners and businesses in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to pay for the pipeline. And whereas our energy challenges are better addressed through investments in green and renewable energy solutions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Templeton Board of Selectmen 1, stands in opposition to the northeast expansion of the Tennessee Gas Pipeline and all similar projects that may later be proposed. 2, stands in solidarity with nearby communities working to disallow the pipeline within their borders. 3, affirms the need for public policy at the local, state, and federal levels to encourage renewable energy and combat climate change, and support legislation to ban or impose a long-term moratorium on hydraulic fracturing, as well as storage, treatment, or disposal of hydraulic fracturing fluid or byproducts within the Commonwealth. 4, shall cause a copy of this resolution to be presented to the Town of Templeton's legislative representatives and the government